Good morning, Musatlamale. Welcome to Kusile Breakfast Show. Thanks so much for joining us today. It is 6 o'clock on the dot. The show wanakuqala kwehlelo lethu. Namhla ekuseni, you can watch us on YouTube. Kanjalo nasecingweni lakho mangabe une-app yethu Eswatini TV app. Sanifisela lapho khona namhla ekuseni. Simanga nje ukuthi umdala usiphepisile kwafika ilanga namuhla lo nifiselako ngulungelele Magagula. Welcome. Sfiso, good morning.
Welcome, Lungalela. Good morning. How are you?
I'm good. I'm great.
I'm doing great. You know, Lungalela, I'm thinking as I'm coming to work, I'm thinking about Livigi, school, the going notion Langepandle. Everyone is talking about the much anticipated state opening of the fifth session of the 11th Parliament. My advanced stages, and I'm reflecting on some of the work and do my different ministries lapa events throughout the financial year. And I would say busy kakhulu, and just to highlight some of the misebenzi beyentiwa ngiwo ematiko sidabuka nje litiko letinkhundla nekuthuthukiswa kwato lisebenze kakhulu sikhwama sekuthuthukisa tifundza i-Regional Development Fund kuthuthukisa imimango ukuthi imimango icale emabhizinisi kube nebantu at least labang 10 ba-applyele lesikhwama bafake at least 10% bese ke uhulumende uyababambisa ngaleyo mali. Sikhuluma ke imali sibili Lungelele ngoba imali betfika nakubo 1.6 million and above bakhona ukuthi bakhona empowerisha bayimimango siyathi ukuthi livela kangwane lokho likuthathela etulu ngoba kuphindze khambelane nayo imandate yalo litiko letinkhundla eku decentralize lusito ukuthi lube le emaphandleni lungabi emadolobheni kuphela. You talk about the commerce industry. We've talked about the commerce industry and trade ministry nawe Lungelele, and you were highlighting indzaba yema-factory shells ekutheni nayo ngilawo manje la mixwa letinkhundleni so yabona ukuthi letinkhundla imisebenzi yato yathelelana. You talk about public works, sibonile some of the interventions emigwaqweni, regraveling, kube health ministry sibuya ku COVID-19, the vaccination drives and some of the other interventions labayendako ukuthi silwe nato tifo lapha eveni. You talk about the tourism ministry. I think Lungelele nekuthi nje besinayo that commercial slot sibone kakhulu imisebenzi litiko la tourism in terms of domestic tourism kuthuthukisa tekuvakasha lapha eveni. It's quite a lot nobuka le misebenzi lebeyentiwa ngiwo ema-ministries, so we are looking forward to the opening yayo iparlamente.
Yes, kanjalo sifiso langa leli balekile leli lakusasa njengoba nje inkosi Mswati ibhekele ukuthi ayivule iparlamente kusasa. Sakumele ukuthi vele enkhulumeni yakhe uvame kubafaka nabo bamfla abadzala sibonele nje ukuthi kuleli viki umhlonishwa DPM umemetele ukuthi bamfla abadzala sabatawuhola njalo ngenyanga phenze futhi sebanamasincwabisane lesabatawukhona kumclaima uma ngabe sebalahlekelwe ngilabo laba sebashile emhlabeni. Sikhathile ukuthi ngabe ingonyama yini lenye letasivetela kona enkhulumeni yakhe sitabe si live nje kusasa sifiso njoba njengenhlala iyenda kuva ukuthi ngabe inkosi itakhuluma ithini enkhulumeni yayo. Sibabonile vele amatiko lamaningi asebenzile sifiso njengoba ushito indzaba nje COVID. I think litiko letempilo lisebenze kakhulu nalo kuzama nje kucukutela abantu ukufundisa abantu ngevaccine kanye nebomcwaka bekuvaccinate njengoba sikhuluma nje live leSwatini lime ku 35% yabantu lasebawugomele lo mkhuhlane. Ngethemba ukuthi na this year lo nyaka batawuchubeka basigqugqudele sive semaswati.
And I'm happy that you mentioned indzaba yabo bantu labadzala because it is one of the key things that dimensionile nankhulu live nabavala yona cabinet retreat ukuthi indeed government going into this new financial year, that is one of the things they are prioritizing bantu labadzala. Inhlala kahle ushilo ukuthi ke lokho vele nenkosi Mswati wesithathu into lesihambisa embili kanti ke lokunye labakuvedile ukuthi disability grant will be priority as well. Bese ke youth empowerment, I was very much I had a particular interest in zabeni yayo youth empowerment nasathi the plight of youth in terms of youth unemployment lapha eveni ukuthi ke they are the majority population lapha eveni. Cabanga ukuthi nje if they prioritize as they say in this new financial year tindzabadayo youth empowerment, we can go a long way in terms of developing that sector ukuthi abantu labasha bathuthukiseke. The living chance litawusitakala kakhulu etindzabeni temnotho njengoba abantu labasha vele solo bayakhuthazwa ukuthi basungule emabhizinisi.
Yes, correct. Mbukeli mhlahleleni ke sita besikhulumisana nalabasuka emandini boreholes dokumela ukuthi nasevikini leliphelile bese nabo sibuketa nje kabantu ngebusiness yabo ukuthi bayinkampani lenda ini. So kumele ukuthi yes excuse me bachazele ukuthi bayinkampani leniketa lusito lama-borehole drilling kanti umgomo wayo wokusebenza kuthuthukisa nje lizinga lekutholakala kwemanti emakhasimendeni abo ikakhulukati emakhasimende lasetindzaweni lapho kude kahle emanti. Evikeni eliphelile sikhulume ngenhloso yale nkampani kanye nemigomo yokusebenza imisebenti lasebayendile emangweni ehlukahlukene sakhulumana ngema-successes kanye nema-challenges ayo le nkampani. Namhlanje sidabe sibuka kakhulu i-pump installation. Sabe sinaye nje in the studio their sales and marketing manager Ayandandla ngamandla namhlanje kuseni nga 7:30. Leseke break kwanyalo sidaba clarity market sibuye netindzaba tetfu namhlanje kuseni.
Pay your TV license quickly and easily with MTN Momo. Simply dial *007 *3# and select option 8 for TV license. Enter your national ID number as your reference and the amount you wish to pay. Then enter your PIN to confirm your payment. Once your payment has been made, you'll receive a confirmation SMS of your payment. If you're a first-time payer, you get another SMS for your TV license. So legalize your entertainment from the comfort of your home. Pay your TV license the easy and convenient way with MTN Momo.
Everywhere you go, MTN.
Simze sikuvusele sokumukele nawo losanza kuzivulela sidaba kwatindzaba tetfu lamhlanje kuseni. Sakaseqophelweni leliphakeme emalungiselelo ekuvulwa kwesiqephu sesihlanu sephalamende ye-11 bekubanjwe umcimbi wokugcina ukubuketa emalungiselelo eqinisekisa ukuthi ukuvulwa kwephalamende kuba ngumcimbi losezingeni leliphakeme.
Umcimbi wekubuketa incubekela phambili emalungiselelweni ekuvulwa kwePhalamende bongenelwe nguNdunankulu nelesekela lakhe mengameli wendlu yetimpunga nemcondziso wenkulumo yePhalamende kanjalo nawo onke ematiko labuka imisebenti lehambisana nokuthi lo msebenzi welive lobalulekile ube imphumelelo. Njengoba sive silungele kuphefumula kwesilo semhlaba ngalesihlanu umhlangano ubukete libanga leselihanjiwe kwemalungiselelo. Ndunankulu Cleopas Dlamini ubonge kutikhandla nekukhokha lonke likhono lokukhonjwe ngematiko lahlukahlukene.
Umuntu akabonge nje ukuthi emandlaleni wafakile kulungiselela lo msebenzi uze kube lana sikhona khona sebonakala usivele soya ngasekupheleni semshopheni emalungiselelo bekungeke kufikwe la kube bonke labaphathekako bangafaka imandla afanele asikefikeke noko ekugcineni so umuntu akacele ukuthi siqhubeke sifake amandla kuze kufike ekugcineni lapho kufanele khona.
Mapalano ePhalamende Benedict Xaba uthi kutawubade indlela yokuthi timenyo letingeke tigcine isikhathi tingene ngekhathi ePhalamende.
Singasho nje ukuthi vele sesime ngemumo umsebenzi wonke welive sokwenzile kuvuselwa kwePhalamende ngalesihlanu lesingakusho nje kuthi amalungiselelo vele asefike ecopheni lelisetulu sekungaba ngisho nje ukuthi sonke sive simenyiwe ngoba vele ngumsebenzi welive ukuthi wonke umuntu lo menyiwe lothola ikhadi abe khona ePhalamende kodwa labo labasemakhaya bayilandzele yonke iPhalamende ku YouTube so lisuku lesilibheke ngemahlelo obovu kakhulu lo. Ngingasho nje ukuthi vele nga-9 AM sigadze kuthi bonke bahlonishwa sebakhona bese kuthi nga-10 wonke songaphakathi. Sesingasho nje sinesive vele emagate ayaqala kuvulwa ngalo 9 bayaqala kungena setabe basithethe. So waze wefika vele sekushayelo 10 kusho ukuthi vele sotawujika noma unelikhadi noma unani utawuvela ujika ubuyele emva ekhaya. So siyacela ukuthi kubede lokhohla likhadi futhi wonke umuntu aliphathe.
Lebeka kwedindzabeni ngisandile Makhanya eParliamente.
Liphini ilandvunankulu Themba Masuku likhuthaza takhamuti tasemadolobheni ukuthi sibhalisele likhetfo lamadolobha kude sitokhona kuba nelivi kuto tonke tincumo letitsatfwa emadolobheni lapho sihlala khona. Liphini ilandvunankulu belikhuluma eCoronation Park eMbabane ngesikhathi liyawubhalisela lo likhetfo.
Tinsaye yaletibhekene nesive emadolobheni atihluphisona kuphela kodwa neliphinilandvunankulu Themba Masuku njengesakhamuthi selidolobha leMbabane lisukumile lafuna ukuthi tilungiseke. Lokhu likwende ngekubhalisela likhetfo lwemadolobha kude naye Masuku atawuba nelivoti lelingatfuma umuntu ukuthi ende lolushintsho kuleli dolobha.
Nahlele endzaweni khona imbono lokufuneka kube nawo. Ngeke ke ulunge naningakahlangani. Nabandzawonye naba ingcenye yinye nami nje ngeke ngisisho staladi sami bekuward 6 la ngihlala khona kunetinto lesifuna ukuthi silungiselwe tona ngiyabekisa emalambu akasimanenge kahle and kulesikhathi leti kufuneka la uhamba khona ungahambi la kuntima khona ufuneka uhambe la kukhanya khona so ngibhalisela ke kuvota ukuthi nelami livi livakale la ngihleli khona. Ukhanza kunetinja tigijima le wadini lakithi asakhona ukuthatha walk guns ngoba inja utawuthi isuke ikulunge so thine la sihlala khona ufuneka indlu yakho inja yakho ihlale ngekhathi ngeke kuvakale lokho nakutawusukuma nje ngikhulume ndawo lele sitamvotela le wadini noma mhlambe ngima ngathi but lele sitamvotela ku ward 6 sitawo kuvotelela ukuthi ente lele sikufunako.
Kubhalisela lo likhetho lwemadolobha kutawufika emaphethelweni mhla tinge-24 kulesetulu. Etindzabeni Eswatini TV kubika Nelisiwe Ndlangamandla nginaThemba Shabango eMbabane.
Indvuna yelitiko letinkhundla nekutfutfukiswa kwato David Ncampalala seyetfule sikhulumba kanye nemphahla yekulima lebita imali lesigidzi semalangeni netinkhulungwane letingemakhulu 1,600,000 enkampanini yemango eKhubutha. Le nkampani itfole kusekeleka esikhwameni sekutfutfukisa tifundza i-Regional Development Fund.
Inkampani yemango wasezishineni ngephansi kwenkhundla yaseKhubutha ihlabela ngenjabulo lenkhulu kulandzela ukuthi indvuna yetinkhundla nekutfutfukiswa kwato David Ncampalala yethule isigulumba lesihamba nelikhuba sikofela iripha yekuvula emalayini ingcola kanye neliplantela kule nkampani lebitwa ngezishineni yasisukumeni multi-purpose cooperative eKhubutha. Indvuna David Ncampalala ikhutsata imimango ngephansi kwetinkhundla tonke telive kuthi sisebenzise isikhwama sekuthuthukisa tifundza kude itfutfukise imimango yayo.
Kusekeleka kwesive nje namhla lokusifikela ngilesive lesukumile sibambisene nenkundla kuthi sifike kulesikhwama kuze kutholakale le mali. Nembala ke sesikhona namhla sitowethula lesikhulumba lesinako konke kokusebenza. Linile ubuthwa silabathi kwendiwa lokwa nalokwa kukhona lokutawubuya kuye etiko. Ngakho ke siyabadumisa kakhulu lesive sala Khubutha ukuthi lo msebenzi lesubona namuhla mhle kakhulu. Sidumise ke nokubambisana kuyo inkundla.
Ilunga leParliamente laseKhubutha Mlamuli Mabuza libonge uhulumende wembube ngesikhwama sekuthuthukisa tifundza.
Sinenjabulo lenkulu nangasibona ngekhathi enhlitiyweni tethu siyamangala lokonakalayo because lokunye lokusithile ukuthi sisive salapha eKhubutha singumphakathi lapha eshinini sihlale phansi sibuke emanetsi liyadingwa ngilesive namo lethi inhlangano talapha so namhlanje sitothula nasikhulumba esila emva kwethu nesibonako lesiningethwe nguye uhulumende wembube so siyakhalalisela khona kunxusa letinye itigotsi naleminye imiphakathi ukuthi aseyibambise isukume nayo kube khona esikwendayo ukuthi imali ka-RDF ikhona imali ka-RDF iyakhona kusiphilisa sibe simaswati.
Ndzabeni Eswatini TV kubika Sifiso Nxumalo ngisezishineni yeKhubutha.
Ivana ilitiko letemidlalo temasiko netindzabate bamlabasha Harris Bulonga seyinikete libandla labacondzisi besikhwama sabamlabasha Youth Fund kutsi lesikhwama basithathe basibeke ezingeni lelisetulu kude bantfu labasha basungule emabhizinisi. Bulonga utsi tindzabate bamlabasha kufanele saleti sebentwa bantfu labasha. Sihlalo waleli bandla nguSifiso Dlamini lonelwati kute kuchumana.
Indvuna yetemidlalo emasiko nensha Harris Bulunga itfumise kusebenta ngetikhandla kwaleli bandla lebacondzisi lesebaphuma ehhovisi. Indvuna itsi-ke bakhonile kwakha umkhombandlela wekusebenta lotawucinisekisa kutsi bantfu labasha batfola kwesekeleka kutemabhizinisi.
Leli bhodi-ke lesilimemetelako bantfu ngizatibonela nani babona ngebuso nje ukuthi bani labasha ngoba tindzabate bani labasha sifuna tilungiswe bani labasha. Kunalo melele litiko-ke principal secretary na principal secretary wase finance naye khona labammelele na fund manager noma CEO wethu kuyingxenye yaleli board bese kuba bani labasha labanema skills lahlukahlukene labanye bagudi tekubala timali labanye ngetemtsetfo labanye emabhizinisi kumaketha netekutsengisa nasingabala nje lawo ma skills labeta nawo.
Emalunga labacondzisi afake ekhatsi Xolani Shongwe, Banele Manyathi, Nomfuneko Njangase, Tebesutfu Magagula, Umfanenkosi Mlayeto, longumabhalane lomkhulu walelitiko, Mncedisi Ncumalo kanye-ke naMandla Nkambule. Etindzabeni kubika Sontomlangeni eMbabane.
Libhange lelikhulu i-Central Bank of Eswatini lisemkhankasweni wokuhlanganisa luhla loluhlose ukufundisa sive ngekwati kabanti ngetimali National Financial Literacy Strategy. Ngokusho kwembiko lothunyelwe nguleli bhange, lolu hlaka litawusita kunciphisa buphuya ngekuthi bantfu bati kabanti ngetimali.
Hulumende welive leSwatini ngekubambisana nemtsholo wamaswati libandla lelengamele emabhange netinkampani letineta lusito lwetimali kanjalo netinkampani letitimele kucaleke umkhankaso wekuhlanganisa luhlaka lwekufundzisa sive kabanti ngetimali. Ngekusho kwembiko lothunyelelwe nguleli bhange, lolu hlaka luhlose ukuthi-ke sive sifundziseke ngalokuphelele nangendlela lekhonsako mayelana netimali. Kucala kusebenziswa kwalolu hlaka kutawusita abantfu kanye netinkampani letineta lusito lwetimali lapha eveni. Lo mbiko uveta kutsi bantfu batawusitakala ngekuthi bakhone kuba nelwati lwekusebentisa kahle timali kuphindze-ke kusite kutsi wonke umuntfu akhone kufinyelela kulo lwati lwetimali. Lolu hlaka litawuphindze-ke lusite kutsi sive sikhone kucatsanisa lapho-ke bafuna kutfola lusito lwetimali khona. Tinkampani letineta lusito lwetimali tona titawusitakala ngekuthi kube netinkampani letinyenti leticudzelanako emakethe lokujingeke kusite sona sive kutsi sente tincumo letihlakaniphile. Lo mbiko ugcina ngekuveta kutsi live lona litawuzuza ekuthenini sive sonke semaswati sibe nelwati lwetetimali lokutawenta-ke kutsi buphuya buphele eveni. Etindzabeni kubika Sontomlangeni eMbabane.
Libandla letelukhetfo nemingcele yetinkhundla Elections and Boundaries Commission latisa sive kulemiphakatsi ngaphansi kwaletinkhundla letilandzelako ukuthi sibe yingcenye yemihlangano wekufundza ngelukhetfo ngemgcibelo mhla ka-18 kulenyanga kusukela ngensimbi ye-10 ekuseni esifundzeni sakaHhohho. Lelibandla litabe lisenkhundleni yaseHhokwini umphakatsi waseDlangeni bese futhi nasenkhundleni yakalobamba emphakathi waseNkhanini ngensimbi yemfica ekseni. Kanti esifundzeni saselibonjeni lelibandla litabe lisenkhundleni yaseligongolweni emphakathi kaLanga kanye nasenkhundleni yempolonjeni emphakathi kaNdzangu. Bese kuthi esifundzeni kaManzini batabe basenkhundleni yasemafutheni emphakathi wasemafutheni kanye nasengculweni. Bese kuthi esifundzeni saseshiselweni batabe basenkhundleni yaseNkwene emphakathi yeNkwene, enkhundleni eMthambama emphakathi eKwenzeni, enkhundleni eKhubutha kanye nasemphakathi eManyeveni. Bese kuthi ngelisomvu mhla ka-19 kulenyanga imihlangano itabe ikuna imiphakathi esifundeni sasakaHhohho itabe isenkhundleni esiphocosini emphakathini yeMantabeni ngensimbi yemfica ekseni kanye nasemphakathi yeSigangeni ngensimbi yemfica. Elibonjeni batabe baseligongolweni enkhundleni emphakathi yemlindazwe nasenkhundleni yempolonjeni emphakathi engcina. Kamanzini batabe basenkhundleni emfongwaneni emphakathi yelwandle. Bese kuthi eshiselweni batabe basenkhundleni yasemaseyisini emphakathi emasibini kanye naseshiselweni 2 emphakathi wakumathendele kanye nasembangweni. Simemetele sikhishwa ngusihlalo welibandla umphanenkosi Mhlabhlangene. Luphiko lwahulumende lotekwakha i-micro projects lithi liyachubeka nekuhlola takhiwo tahulumende ekakhulukazi emabhuloho ukuqinisekisa ukuthi isive siphephile njengoba timvula tichubeka nekuna. General omkhulu kule nkampani Sikhumbuzo Dlamini uthi baphinza basebenzisane nesive kususa tikhukhula letisemabhulohweni kodwa kutawubabede ukuthi kabeteka sive sisawela imifula.
Sithena sifika lena sakhanza ukuthi ayicala ibhuloho limile liyasebenza kazondwako. Nalamanye ke siphinzisa wahlola ikakhulu kule mifula lemikhulu. Sikhanza ukuthi onke amabhuloho ahamba kahle. Kuleti imvula lokho nje lesikutholile ukuthi kumele sichubeke siphele kuhlola sonke isikhathi ngoba leti imvula tiyachubeka nyalo adisane kakhulu dina kancane manje lokuna kancane le precipitation iphele kungeteka la mifuleni. So we're doing continuous checks singulumende but so far emabhuloho asemile. Kula mabhuloho vele lokhanza ukuthi leti khukhula tikhona siyadikhanza leti khukhula vele. Leti khukhula ke ngento lesithi khanza kungento leti sihlupha kakhulu. Kepha ngekusebenzisana kanye nesive siyakhona lokubese sesiyaklina. Phenze nalokunye siye sithi ngoba uyokhanza ukuthi lesikhukhula sihlahla sonke. Lapho ke siye sibese ke sesicela labe sisebenzisana nabo labo zokontraka ukuthi basite la lesive ngekuthi basilethele imishini bese sesiyakhona lokuhlobisa.
Ihlangano tekongane kobolekisa tibonakala tindlondlobala ngemisebenzi lengenisa imali lisungulwa nguleti inhlangano ngekusho kwa Grace Ludlu loluleka ngetimali ehlelweni lokuthuthukisa tinhlangano tekongane kobolekisa emalunga asekanalo lwati lokusebenzisa timali ngalokufanele. Grace abekhuluma emhlanganweni nokuceceshwa kwamalunga aleti inhlangano.
Ngemetamo yikuniketa tinhlangano tekongane kobolekisa letisebentela emakhaya ngelwati lolujulile. Hulumende weSwatini ngekubambisana neTaiwan ICDF sewuceceshe letinhlangano ngemakhono lehlukene. Ngekusho kwa Grace Ludlu loluleka ngetimali uthi ke emalunga aletinhlangano tekongane kubolekisa kubheke ukuthi tikhone kuba nemakhono ekutfutfukisa letinhlangano.
Lokumcoka ngilokufundza ngoba vele ingilapho siqala khona bese sekuphindze kuba mcoka lokuthi babe nayo umkhombandlela lesithi strategic plan ukuthi vele batawusebenza kanjani and bafuna ukuthi bona bakuphi in the next 5 years.
Umphathi welikolishi leCodec Charles Khumalo uthi ke letinhlangano tiyatfutfuka njengoba impahla yekongane kobolekisa lapha eveni seyilinganiselwa ku3 billion emalangeni.
The economy of the country starts vele ya improve kakhulu. Nabuka sibonke labantu labakuma cooperatives nyalo abanengi sebakhonile kwakha tindlu emakhaya ngemali yema cooperatives. Bakhonile ukuthenga imoto ngemali yema cooperatives. Babafundzisile abantwana etikolweni ngemali yema cooperatives. So nje kuba lula ngesikhathi ulunga le cooperatives lokuthola imali uyo investor wherever la ufuna uku-investa khona.
Lolu hlelo kwelekuceceshwa kwaletinhlangano selufike emaphethelweni njengoba kubheke ukuthi lugcine ngaJuly kulomnyaka losetulu. Tindzabeni kubika Sondomlangeni nginavuma inkosi Nsinisa ezulwini.
Babewe bantwana labalishumi soboshelwe tinsolo tekudlwengula imfombatana leneminyaka lengemashumi lamabili. Lomsolwa sowufake emaphepha enkantolo lenkhulu lapho wacela ukutokela ngephandle. Lendzaba isimbiko lijaji Cyril Maphanga.
Sifiso Vusi Shabangu uboshwe wabekwa licala lekudlwengula dzadze loneminyaka lengemashumi lamabili longeke ashiwo libito lakhe kuze avikeleke. Shabangu kuthiwa wamesabisa lo dzadze ngekuthi utambulala uma angalali naye. Lomsolwa sowufake emaphepha enkantolo enkulu lapho acela khona ukutokela ngephandle. Lomsolwa utshele inkantolo ukuthi leli cala akalendanga futhi utaliphika noma selitekwa. Shabangu utshele inkantolo ukuthi babonana nesimangali kungumsombuluko baniketana tinombolo telucingo bacala kushayelana batfumelelana namilayeto etingcingweni. Lomsola uthi ngalesibili walayela simangali endlini yakhe nembala sefika. Shabangu utshele inkantolo ukuthi nabefika endlini simangali sacela ukuthi avale umnyango base sebaya ecasini. Wengete nekuthi basengakayi ecasini bekunendvodza beyisolo ishayela simangali isibuta ukuthi sikuphi noko simangali sagcine sesingaluphendvuli lucingo. Shabangu uchazele inkantolo ukuthi bathi nabacedza wabuyela emsebentini njengobe angumakhi. Uchazele inkantolo nekuthi simangali sasala sageza wase usibona sesihamba nalenye indvodza. Shabangu wengete nekuthi ngalesithatfu kulona lelo viki kwafika emaphoyisa atombopha ngelibhande lakhe njengobe lamaphoyisa bekede nabozankosi. Lomsola utshele inkantolo ukuthi unebantwana labalishumi 15 kanye nemfati lababuke yena. Wengete nekuthi labantwana baneminyaka lesuka ku-15 baye etinyangeni lelishumi nakunye 11 months. Inkantolo imkhululile lomsolwa ngebheyili lengu-15,000 yathi akabhadale imali lengu-3,000 emalangeni bese uletha sibambiso lesingalingana 12,000 emalangeni. Ndzabeni Eswatini TV kubika Themkosi Mavimbela, inkantolo lenkulu.
Imidlalo ye-MTN Eswatini bebambe umhlangano nabetindzaba emahhovisini lamakhulu ayo ye-MTN lapho khona bekulithuba lekubuka ukuthi ngutiphi tindlela ye-MTN lengachubeka ngokusekela ngayo temidlalo lapha eveni. Kwanyalo ye-MTN isekela imidlalo ye-MTN Premier League, imidlalo yemabhayisikili kanye nemidlalo yeligaluva. Ivetile ukuthi batimisele ukuchubeka nekusekela lemidlalo lemine lapha eveni. Kulomdlalo weligaluva ye-MTN Eswatini ivetile ukuthi kwanyalo isebentana nemacembu lamane alapha eveni lekuyimbabane Golf Club, Manzini Golf Club, Nkonyeni Golf Club kanye neMananga Golf Club. Etindzabeni temidlalo we-basketball ye-MTN Eswatini ivetile ukuthi kwanyalo seyimile kusekela umdlalo we-basketball. Emdlalweni webhola lenkampani ivetile ukuthi solo itimisele kuletsa tinhlelo letitawubona imidlalo ye-MTN Premier League ithuthuka lapha eveni ngokubambisana nayo i-Premier League lekungiyo lephethe imidlalo ye-Premier League. Mengameli wenhlangano yemidlalo we-Taekwondo Zakhele Dlamini uthi lenhlangano seyicala emalungiselelo yemidlalo yema-African Youth Championships letabanjelwa eveni lase-Congo Brazzaville eminyakeni kulomnyaka. Dlamini uthi babuke ukuthi bahambise licembu lelatfola timindlela letisihlanu tegolide emidlalweni yema-Region 5 lebeyibanjelwa eveni lase-Malawi eminyakeni lophelile. Dlamini uthi leli cembu litawuphindze litinyusele ematfuba ekuthi lingangenela imidlalo yema-Commonwealth Youth Games litawubanjelwa eveni lase-Trinidad and Tobago ngenyanga yeNgci.
As a federation silungiselela ama-Onaka Games kule bantwana sicabanga ukuthi siyafisa ukuthi bahambe bawukhompyutha ama-Onaka Games. Labantwana ngilaba ke laba ama-juniors lebahlabene ku-Region 5 bathole amagolide. Nyalo sesifuna ukubadlalisa South Africa so that bakhona ukukhompyutha khona sibone ukuthi balingani babo la Africa because bebadlala kuma-Region 5 ngule southern part. So nyalo sesibuka ukuthi ngabe le u-Africa wonke batawena njani. Labantwana abavele solo siyabakha sibakhela ukuthi umane baqualify next year for Paris 2024 lapha sitaba khona nema-Olympics because i-aim ya wonke imidlalo uthola ligolide kuma-Olympics nama-World Championships.
Ngaleto temidlalo satephetsa tindzaba tetfu lomhla ekseni sawatsa salikhefu sibe sichubeka sinjine simo setulo.
Watch local TV on the go with the Eswatini TV app for only 20 emalangeni. Come on. Do the most with Eswatini TV app. Download from Google Play Store or App Store. We're good together.
Everywhere you go, MTN.
It is 32 minutes after 6. We're going to take an insert now by Gabriela Ramos, who is the Assistant Director General for Social and Human Sciences of the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, UNESCO, where she oversees the institution's contributions to building inclusive society. Her mandate includes tackling economic inequalities of income and opportunity and promoting social inclusion and gender equality. She also oversees the youth support gender, promotion of values through sport, fight against racism and discriminations, as well as ethics of science, including neurotechnology and the Internet of Things. We take a look now at an insert of Gabriela talking about human and social sciences.
My name is Gabriela Ramos, and I am the Assistant Director General for Social and Human Sciences. Sciences are the basis of human knowledge. And of course, it helps us as a societies, but it also helps us as humans to manage better our lives. So this is core to UNESCO, that is there to promote peace. Well, it's very interesting, and few people has this top of mind, that UNESCO is the only institution in the UN system, and I would say in the multilateral setting, that has ethics of science and technology as a mandate. And of course we say, what about ethics? It seems like just for reflection, just for intellectual purposes, just because we want to be well informed. The reality is that the ethics encompasses the purpose-led technological development. So it's not the technology, it's the purpose of that technology to help us humans to build more sustainable, inclusive societies in general, and to ensure that the technologies are not an end in itself, but just a mean to contribute to this building of societies that are more manageable and more inclusive. And the ethics, if you think about it, of course, it's this reflection of what is wrong, what is the moral grounds, but it's also defined at UNESCO, first and foremost, to protect and promote human rights and human dignity. But not only that, because with the climate crisis in which we are now, with the planetary catastrophe in so many fields, we are not talking now about human-centric. We are talking planet-centric. And therefore is a human, but is a human also in its relationship with the environment, is a human in the relationship with the society, is a human and the responsibility that we have also vis-a-vis others, vis-a-vis the future generations, vis-a-vis the other livings. And therefore I think that this definition of ethics is all-encompassing, but is really the framework that we should have, not only for science, I would say for everything, but we have it here as a very core mandate. Defining what is ethics is almost a circular argument, because the fact is that there is not one single ethics. Ethics depends of culture, depends of countries, context, depends of historical facts, depends of many things. And that's why even how you define ethics, you need to do it ethical. And you do it ethical when you do it pluralistic, when you ensure that diverse voices are heard, when you ensure that different points of view, even conflicting points of view, are put at the table, and also if you do it in a multidisciplinary fashion. And I give you an example. Very interestingly, when we started to define the ethics of artificial intelligence, the Director General appointed 24 experts from all over the world. UNESCO does that. We need to have representativeness from countries in the north, countries in the south, east, west, but also from very different disciplines. And that was fascinating, because having in the same room the anthropologues, the sociologues, the geeks, you need the geeks to understand the technologies, the engineers, but also the psychologists. It gives you another trust, another understanding. And what comes out is not only a technologically solid proposition, but also something that takes into account the broader societal goals. And I think this is the most important contribution that UNESCO has done. Those that say that international institutions just produce words or papers or agreements do not understand the power of multilateralism. The fact is that, yes, sometimes you have conventions that are binding, you just need to deliver, and that's it. But then there is a wide array of tools that multilateralism has to deliver change. And therefore, we measure our action by how much we change with our decisions the future of the countries and the situation of the specific countries. I am a believer of the soft law, of the soft power of these institutions. Why? Because first, let's not underestimate the great contribution that a common narrative can make. When you put in the table 193 countries that are the members of UNESCO to agree on what does it mean to have the ethics of science, the ethics of artificial intelligence, the ethics of Internet of Things, the ethics of neurotechnology, you are creating a narrative. And narratives matter for action, to inform action. So that in itself, it's a very important contribution, creating a common narrative. Second, it's not that we just say, okay, now we agree on that we need to proceed to protect human rights in the digital space. We have the means to follow up. First, because UNESCO has very clear, or members of UNESCO had very clear responsibilities in ensuring that they implement what they sign. But second, because we also have the tools. And I will give you an example. When the bioethics committee produced the Ethique of the Bound, the Declaration on Human Genome, first and foremost, we realized that there was no responsibility in the governments, sole responsibility in the governments to figure out how to handle these things. And therefore, the next step with members was to build the bioethics committees in the countries. So this institutional progress that we made, and that now there's no country that will approve anything that comes from bioethical technologies if it is not reviewed by the bioethics committees. And therefore, this institutional innovation meant that what was agreed in UNESCO related to frame the issues in an ethical way translated into bringing the capacities of the governments to look at the specific cases and define it also through the ethical lenses. Does all the countries move in the same direction with the same speed and with the same power and exert change in the same manner? No. There are different capacities, there are different commitments, they sometimes have very strong leadership, sometimes they don't. But at the end, what happens is that you create this race to the top in the sense of members wanting to deliver for good. And if they see that something is working and they learn from each other also because that brings this possibility, I think that we make progress and we make impact. The way we frame the ethical reflection in UNESCO can provide a lot of answers. Ethical reflection in UNESCO is about solidarity, is about no harm, is about respecting rights, is about responsibility, is about accountability, is about asking the right questions. Maybe we have too many solutions instead of asking the right questions, and that's what the social and human sciences provide, asking the right questions. And I presented a seminal report that is related to geoengineering, the ethics of geoengineering. We are now trying to put all the policy options for delivering on the climate transition, all the policy options. And you need to put a tax on carbon, and you need to invest more on renewables, and you need to use less car or eat less meat or change the food system. All of these things are fine. One of the possible solutions that is very controversial is to change the climate through technological means, to reduce the solar radiation that reaches the Earth. The planes that are now being planes are now being built in the US, which is one of the leading countries, to prove that that is possible, that you can go in the stratosphere, deliver some chemicals, reactions, and avoid that the solar lights came so badly. And with that, we're safe. Should we, who's taking the decision? Who's governing this? Do we have all the science to do that? Is it going to be only for those that can afford to it? Are you going to consider those that are leaving behind? Are the countries of the South with the voice at the table of those that might take or not take that decision? Are we going to do it? That's the ethics of science. We have the capabilities, we have the technologies, we have the human progress, is just the human ingenuities with no boundaries. The question is, should we? And I think this is powerful at UNESCO, because this ethical reflection that is pluralistic, as I said, diverse, open, is only looking to have inclusive and fair outcomes, which are somewhat lacking in the world that we have today. And you apply it to the climate change and geoengineering, but you also apply it to neurotechnologies. Because now we can map the brain. I mean, it's just amazing. The technologies are amazing. You can map the brain. You can know what people react or not react. We might have a cure for Alzheimer. We might have enhancers. And then you can learn faster and be smarter. And you can, because the technology is there. The question, should we? And again, who takes the decision? Who is at the table? Who finances? And how do we protect or prevent the misuse of these technologies? Because remember that the ethical reflection in UNESCO started when science was misused by fascist and non-democratic governments. And therefore, there was this very strong will to say science for human progress, for human dignity, and for human rights. And we should always remember that, because science, you can use it for good and for bad. And therefore, for UNESCO, we really need to ensure that it's used on an ethical manner. I think this is the most important contribution that we can make. I believe in the power of evidence and science. And I can tell you that, for example, with the recommendation on the ethics of artificial intelligence, we are reframing the debate. And governments are really taking it up for them to implement it. And why is it different? Because the way the artificial intelligence, which is this capacity of the computers to use data to produce solutions, because that's in general, of course, there are many ways of doing artificial intelligence, but there is nothing else than more analytical power to do things, to analyze data, is highly concentrated. Few countries, 5 countries in the world are producing all the developments, and I would say mainly only 2, which is the US and China, are non-diverse. 80% of these technologies, or 85%, are being produced by male-only teams from the north, therefore in one language, with one mindset, with one culture. And then the way we govern data, which is global, because data is transferable across boundaries, or I may say is not governed, because data belongs to those that can harness it, that can collect it, and that can use it. And therefore, what we are doing, the way these technologies are being deployed, is that we are going to be maximizing and increasing the inequalities and unfairness in the world. And therefore, with the way we brought the recommendation to say first, data needs to belong to the person that produces it. This rule of consent that we do so fast in the internet needs to change, because then your data is using for many other purposes that you don't even know. And then you have the meddling in democracies, and you have the Cambridge Analytica, and you have all these problems that are happening, or discrimination, just plain discrimination. Second, you need to have the ethical framework. It's not about the technology. It's not about whether you can use these technologies to produce the vaccine of COVID in 1 month, in 1 year instead of 8 years, because of the analytical capacities. is how do you ensure that whatever result is going to be fair, is going to be non-discriminatory, and is going to respect human rights and human dignity. In the world of the economic thinking, everything was macro, no? We have the neoliberal, the consensus of Washington, no? Telling just get markets right, it will work, limit the space of governments for interfering to the minimum, and the benefits of growth will deliver for all, no? The way will lift all the boats. It's not true. And therefore, the contribution of MOS that was super interesting is that they went to very contextual environments that didn't happen in the mainstream economic thinking. The mainstream economic thinking was one size fits all, representative agents, rational decision making, so averages, GDP growth. We measure progress by how much we produce and consume. That was it. What MOS did well was to go to very concrete problems of communities, and we created the most schools. So if you are a policymaker in Ghana, no, in one of the villages that want to understand better how to distribute the resources to improve the health conditions of certain communities, MOST was this powerful convener of the experts on those issues, international and national, and with the policymakers, and then they produce solutions. We just have one MOST school in the Caribbean that was amazing because they were talking actually about climate change. What is lacking, and we are now building it, is this broader narrative. What MOST has to say regarding development and development paths. What MOST has to say about inclusive growth. What MOST has to say about the mainstream economic thinking to deliver better solutions and to move away from this mantra that the markets always deliver better, because it's not true. We have the financial crisis, we have COVID, we have climate. Don't deliver better. You need policies, but you need good policies. And now MOST, I'm very happy because members of the governing body of this program approved the MOST strategy 2022-2029. And what they said is we need to understand better the impact of the digital transformation, the climate emergencies, demographics, because demographics entails aging in some countries and migration in another, and the question of inequalities. These four trends that for me are defining the world as we know it need to be better understood and better managed. And we produce a report that is the Resilient and Inclusive Societies with La Fundación La Caixa, who is our partner, that makes a call to incorporate equity and sustainability consideration ex ante, because they're always exposed. You take economic decisions to increase growth, to increase productivity, and then you say, yes, but I need to do some redistribution. I need to do some social programs. I need to fix the environment. I forgot to include the environment in my decision making. What we're saying is no. Whenever you're going to take a decision of any investment, any economic policy, you need to have the efficiency argument, the cost-benefit, traditional definitions, but then you need to put the lenses of how this decision is going to contribute or not to close the inequality gaps. Very straightforward. How any decision is going to affect women? How many decisions are going to affect those at the bottom of the income distribution? These lenses, we need to put it first. How that decision is going to impact the environment. And this is what we're trying to do with MOST. So I think there's going to be a MOST renaissance with this new framing, and we're hoping to bring also the best and the brightest, because we're going to launch the Thought Leader group. When we think about social and human sciences, one very concrete example is this program on digital anthropology. This is a program we launched last year with the LIP Center, a data business group that is interested in understanding better. And I was just saying, okay, what it has to do, no? Anthropologist and digital, how you combine these two, no? Anthropology seems to be a science from the past to look at past civilizations. Well, no. it's amazing because the kind of insights they can give you of how we humans change when creating communities in the digital space is super rich. And no other science can tell you how you change your own identity when you get into the metaverse. You create your own avatar with a different personality. I don't know, maybe you like yourself and you create something that is exactly like you. Maybe not. But at the end, this interaction with the technology and also with the other people that use the technology shape different communities, different societies. And therefore, it really sheds light. And when we deliver on using anthropology to understand digital communities, we also launch a contest to look who was using anthropology for very concrete problems in the net. And we found this group in Brazil that was using anthropology to identify how does it happen, the aggression to political leaders, female political leaders during campaigns in Brazil. Because they found that there is a really very high instances of attacks on women participating in political campaigns. And through the digital anthropology, they understood how it was shaped, how it's defined, but more importantly, how to counter it, because it was embedded in the algorithms, again, these biases that I was mentioning. Another group formed a very impressive community of people that have suffered some kind of aggression in the net. And you know what happened, which was very interesting, because this is about humans, it's about us, how we feel, how we interact with the technologies. We're not robots. We have our own feelings. What happened is that they created this space, and originally they were thinking about producing solutions for the people that were aggressed in the net, and good luck. What happened is that by connecting all these people that have suffered the same, they created a fantastic space that you don't need anything else. I think that decision making in general, and more in the economic field, which is the more important, has been captured by quantitative economics and therefore modelings. And this is the same what happens with artificial intelligence. You build models that then you don't even understand why they behave the way they behave. What I'm saying is that these sciences, anthropology, humanities, history, just to take decisions and learn from the past is so simple, might help us to get better solutions. And it's not a difficult proposition to understand. It might help us, for example, with the goal of Secretary General Guterres to go beyond GDP. We are bound to measure our progress with GDP growth. Does it really capture the multidimensional?
Well, that was Gabriela Ramos on human and social sciences, just giving us more on what they do at UNESCO with regards to developing those two fields. It is exactly 54 minutes after 6. Stabahlolet Market, Masbuya, starts a traffic update.
Do you remember the spinning thing? This is us. This picture represents what we did. We were there when coronavirus wreaked havoc in our population. Together with other stakeholders, we formed the first line, controlling the spread of the unknown and unseen enemy of the people. Anxious ourselves, we collected dead bodies countrywide. At the time when no one wanted to come near dead bodies of loved ones, we did care for our fellow citizens. Thank you, the people of Eswatini and teams of first responders.
Welcome back. Klasikhathanya loke sesivele sinaye Sergeant Bekmuzikule losipha yona i-traffic update. Makobane sikuvusele lihlelweni ingabe nisiphathele ini namuhla emigwaqweni.
Ngoni anguvusele ekuseni ngivusele umbukelo walolu hlelo emadolobheni ethu lamakhulu ekhasi edolobheni laseMbabane standard sethu lesingusomhlolo road solo sivaliwe kanjalo nama-coursing drive netibane tetfu letilapha ngasesibhedlela solo atiuveti-ke umbala lobovu ukhombisa ukuthi tiyavala na uqhamuka i-cash build ubuka esibhedlela noma uqhamuka esibhedlela lesikhulu ubuka khona i-cash build ku-Crescent Road kanjalo-ke netibane letilapha emangwaneni naleto tibane leto solo tisebenzi siyagcizelela nje kakhulu bekunene ukuthi tindzawo letiphithitelako lapha esibhedlela kuphithitela bona labo lababheka ngakhona esibhedlela labatawudzinga kunakekelwa kwatise ukuthi bahamba nangesizini lesiphansi kakhulu kanjalo-ke futhi nakhona lapha emangwaneni sicaphele njengoba kungumgwaco lomkhulu kunebantfwana besikolo labancane besibanga leliphansi labadzinga-ke nabo kunakekelwa kanti-ke na uphuma khona edolobheni laseMbabane lapha phansi emvutshini noma-ke lapha nawenca lapha emnyamasini ubheka khona emvutshini siyacela nje kakhulu bekunene ukuthi sicaphele nakhona kuneloli lapho lethetheke ingxenye yemzila wekuhamba noko iphumaphumile kepha-ke kumshayeli loyakuqhamuka ngesivinini lesetulu angaba nako kwethuka kanti-ke na usuka khona-ke eGamanzini ubuya khona eMbabane ngawo umgwaco lomkhulu siyacela nakhona nicaphele labo labasebentako emgwaqweni kanti na usuka khona eMbabane ubheka eMhlambanyatho uhamba kaMhlambanyatho road noma-ke MR19 kunema-potholes kuloyo mgwaco loyo uze uyophuma etulu kumalutha noma-ke khona-ke kubobhunya nakhona emgwacweni wethu losuka lapha emotshane na ubheka khona esipiki naloyo mgwaco loyo unema-potholes lesekabonakala amabi sibili aphinde abe sekhathi nekhathi nawo-ke umgwaqo kanti na usuka lapha ekeni la kumathamo ubuya khona emsahweni noma-ke ubheka khona kubungonini ku-MR1 lapho-ke umgwaco wethu ulimele lapho sekusebenta umzila munye kusukela lapha emsahweni na ubheka khona lapha eMlumati eBlohweni loluhlangothi lwangenhlanye lwalomgwaqo nje kusukela kule center lane lohibikile imoto loke setiyawuthi tincintisane kuwo-ke umzila-ke longasekudla lophuma lobuya ngakhona emsahweni siyacela nje kakhulu bekunene ukuthi sibeketelelane njengoba imoto lotingaphambani kuleyo ngcingwana leyo kanti kuletinye tifundza lesingakuphawula ngiyo nje indzaba lesolo sigcizelele ngayo ukuthi imvula ibe nemthelela lomubi wato emgwacweni siyakhuthazwa nje kakhulu ukuthi asibe ngilabanakile sicaphele kakhulu ekushayeleni kwethu sicaphele nabo labahamba ngetinyawo watise ukuthi usakhetha yona indlela kungenteka kube nayo ingoti esikhathi uhamba ngayo-ke imoto le yakho sithi nje kube kunene akube lilanga lelihle naleliphephile nisasebenzisa wona umgwaco nanendlini emsakazo ngiboni simpisele ilanga lelihle nelibandla lokubambisene nalo labonjinela siyabonga kakhulu mboni
Sibonga kakhulu Magwabane bekunye-ke Sergeant Back Music kule asipha yona i-traffic update-ke uyacela nje ukuthi-ke nasemigwacweni nanathi lesingema-passengers nema-pedestrians bashayelise kahle lapha labachubati imotolo kude kungantawubane tingoti emigwacweni sibahlole emakethe sinasibuya sithatha ima-international news.
Watch local TV on the go with the Eswatini TV app for only 20 emalangeni per month. Do the most with Eswatini TV app. Download from Google Play Store or App Store. We're good together.
Everywhere you go, MTN.
1 minute after 7, let's take a look at our international news. We start in Ukraine, where Western backers pledged at meeting Tuesday to keep the huge amounts of ammunition and arms Kyiv needs flowing to the front line as Russia battled for the devastated city of Bakhmut.
No announcements on aircraft, but Ukraine's allies pledged to give as much ammunition as possible as NATO defense ministers met in Brussels. U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin said Ukraine was preparing a counteroffensive in the spring, and the alliance was focused on making sure Kyiv had the firepower, armor, and logistics to make it effective.
It's a monumental task to bring all those systems together, get the troops trained on those platforms, and make sure we have sustainment for all of those systems, and get those systems into the fight. So that's really the focus of our conversation today.
On the battlefield in Bakhmut, Moscow is digging in its heels, with the bulk of Russia's resources directed at the key eastern city. The regional governor told local media that not 1 square meter in the city was safe from Russian fire and drones. According to Washington, Russia's progress has been slow, and with newly drafted soldiers poorly trained and ill-equipped, the casualty rate is high.
Their leadership and morale is not great, and they're struggling mightily. However, they do have numbers, and as you know, President Putin did a call-up of several 100,000, and those folks have been arriving on the battlefield.
On Tuesday, NATO pledged to keep ammunition flowing to Kyiv after Alliance Chief Jens Stoltenberg said the Ukrainians were going through shells much faster than allies could produce them. Plus, Ukraine could soon need more munitions than ever, amid concern Russia could ramp up its offensive.
Now for more on the war between Russia and Ukraine. As the anniversary of the Russian invasion of Ukraine approaches, fighting in the east of the country is intensifying. Around the town of Vuhelde, Ukrainian soldiers say that the Russians have suffered big losses as they continue to knock back their attacks. But elsewhere, Kyiv has admitted that Moscow is making small but significant gains. Let's take a look.
Around the town of Volodar, these Ukrainian soldiers say that Russians have suffered big losses as they continue to knock back their advances. But in Ukraine's Donbas region, the pressure is increasing.
The enemy's artillery and mortar attacks have increased. Previously, there were a couple of attacks a day, but now there are more than 10 attacks a day.
One should not underestimate the enemy. One cannot ignore the fact that the enemy is having small but significant successes, the so-called battles of local importance.
Bakhmut is the bloodiest battle of this war, according to both sides. What was a small city of 70,000 people before the war has seen fierce fighting as Russia continues its campaign in the eastern industrial zone. Ukrainian forces fear a massive counter-offensive as the anniversary of the invasion approaches.
The situation on the front line, especially in the Donetsk and Luhansk regions, remains extremely difficult. It is literally a battle for every meter of Ukrainian land.
Civilians have taken refuge in the village of Chasiv Yar, just 15 kilometers from Bakhmut. Many remain hopeful that they will return home soon.
Without any doubt, in a month or two or even earlier, because the Russians will never capture Bakhmut. That will never happen. We know it in our heart, so now we just wait and we're going to plant our crops because there's a new season coming.
Wagner, Russia's mercenary group spearheading the campaign in Bakhmut, say they do not expect to take the city anytime soon, despite claiming gains in nearby villages. This battle has become a symbol of Ukraine's resistance.
Now in Turkey, their president has promised to rebuild the areas destroyed by the quake. Recep Tayyip Erdogan has announced the construction of 30,000 homes starting next month. The president says the buildings would be safe and of high quality, considering the need for stricter enforcement of modern construction codes. Experts say buildings in the earthquake zone were not up to standards, with some contractors already under arrest. Let's take a look.
In Adana, southern Turkey, 1,500 people are packed into these tents. They've been homeless for a week, and many are pointing the finger at building contractors.
If you look at those flats, you can immediately see it's iron and cement. There are not enough real building materials in them. It is all due to a lack of proper building materials and the contractors who are thieves.
Some residents, whose buildings are still standing, are starting to return home. First, though, teams of engineers and architects undertake quality checks. Breaking the wall with a hammer, they do an initial inspection to assess the extent of the damage. Then they collect samples to analyze in a lab. Criticism is growing over the Turkish government's non-compliance with building codes, but authorities are blaming contractors and have made arrests for negligence. On Tuesday, President Recep Tayyip Erdogan said most of the collapsed structures were built before his mandate, but admitted more vigilance was needed.
The fact that 98% of the buildings that collapsed in the disaster are the ones that were built before 1999 shows us the progress we made in the standardization of buildings and inspections, but it also reminds us that we need to be stricter.
The Justice Ministry is set to investigate the destroyed buildings, but experts say to study the root of the weak enforcement, the probe will need to focus on local and regional officials who oversaw Turkey's construction boom.
Now for more on the earthquake, search and rescue operations are still underway in earthquake-hit regions in Turkey and Syria, but efforts are slowly being shifted to helping the survivors get back on their feet. Nevertheless, in Turkey, emergency services are still finding survivors trapped in the rubble of collapsed buildings, bringing hope to some families.
It's been over a week since the devastating quakes tore through northern Syria and southern Turkey, and survivors are still being pulled out of the rubble. In the impacted Turkish regions, families are holding out hope to find their missing loved ones alive. But while search and rescue teams are determined to find more survivors, focus is now shifting to dealing with the aftermath of the natural disaster.
The needs are huge, increasing by the hour. Some 26 million people across both countries need humanitarian assistance. We, working with many partners, are supporting the massive humanitarian response to save lives, treat the injured, and crucially, help get the health system, particularly primary health care, back up and running.
There is no place to stay, there is no toilet, no water, no electricity. 4 days. After 4 days, electric comes, but still we have no water or gas for heating. It's too cold.
The combined death toll in Turkey and Syria has surpassed the 41,000, and over 1.2 million people living in Turkey have found themselves homeless. However, for the survivors across the affected regions, along with dealing with freezing temperatures and the lack of basic necessities, health officials have warned of a cholera outbreak in Syria, which could make matters worse as it reaches the Turkish border.
Now in France, a key article of French government's controversial pension reform plans has been rejected by the country's parliament. The so-called senior index, intended to track the employment of senior workers in companies, failed to get enough support following a heated debate in the National Assembly.
A key article of France's pension reform has been rejected by the National Assembly, leading to a disappointed Labour minister on the radio.
We spent 3 days debating over 2,000 amendments on the seniors index. The left voted against one of them, so the index was abolished. I always said the index alone was not enough, but it's now been thrown out.
Article 2, or the implementation of this so-called seniors index, is a measure meant to accompany the highly controversial raising of the legal retirement age from 62 to 64 and guarantee better employment for older workers. But following the heated debate, the government failed to get enough support in the Assembly. The Senior Employment Index was intended to track the employment of senior workers in companies, as well as track the measures taken by those companies to improve conditions for these workers. Employers of over 1,000 people would have been asked to provide this information from November onwards, or face financial penalties. Macron's party doesn't have a majority in the National Assembly, and so this defeat is seen as a failure to garner enough votes, particularly from the right-wing MEPs, despite attempted compromises from the presidential party. Les Républicains said the index would be problematic for small and medium-sized businesses, while other critics say the reform was purely cosmetic and lacking in substance. Members of Parliament have until Friday to go over 18 more articles of the reform, but if the debate is not over in the lower house by then, the bill will be sent to the Senate without a vote.
Brazil's former president, Jair Bolsonaro, said he plans to return to the country in March after having spent more than a month in the United States, the Wall Street Journal reported on Tuesday. Bolsonaro will return to lead the political opposition to President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva and defend himself against accusations that he instigated violent election denial protests last month, he said in an interview with the newspaper.
Comeback. In an interview with the Wall Street Journal, the former president announced his intentions to return to Brazil in March in order to secure the leadership of the opposition. The right-wing ex-head of state also hopes to defend himself against accusations that he instigated violent protests by his supporters in Brasilia last January. Following his loss to left-wing President Lula da Silva in 2022, on January 8th, Bolsonaro's supporters stormed several government buildings in the capital in an attempt to overturn his opponent's electoral victory.
I don't know if the former president ordered it, but what I do know is that he is guilty because he spent 4 years instigating hatred among the people, lying to Brazilian society, and encouraging the idea that the people have to be armed in order to guarantee democracy.
Just 2 days before President Lula da Silva's inauguration, Bolsonaro left the country, heading to the U.S. state of Florida. After initially keeping a low profile, he has been making public appearances, giving speeches, and meeting with his followers.
I've been here for 30 days. I intend to stay longer here, not sure how much longer. We cannot abandon politics. Politics is part of our life. I am 67 years old and intend to remain active in Brazilian politics.
Bolsonaro remains in the U.S. on a diplomatic visa. However, his lawyer said last month he had applied for a 6-month permit, which is currently pending.
After 8 years as both Scotland's leader and the face of the country's independence movement, Nicola Sturgeon has announced she will resign as soon as a replacement is found, but with no obvious successor waiting in the wings. Analysts say the First Minister's departure will leave a vacuum within the SNP.
After 8 years as both Scotland's leader and the face of the country's independence movement, Nicola Sturgeon is stepping aside.
Giving absolutely everything of yourself to this job is the only way to do it. The country deserves nothing less. But in truth, that can only be done by anyone for so long. For me, it is now in danger of becoming too long.
Sturgeon said the unexpected decision wasn't a reaction to short-term pressures. Though she's enjoyed strong popularity throughout her time in power, Sturgeon has recently become embroiled in a row over whether transgender women should be housed in all-female prisons. A panel-based poll showed 42% of Scots wanted the First Minister to step down immediately. The poll found more than 3/4 of sceptics had safety concerns around the Scottish Parliament's gender recognition reform bill. Sturgeon's SNP party also suffered a blow in November when the UK's top court ruled the Scottish government couldn't hold a second referendum without approval from the British Parliament. Sturgeon then said she would turn the next British general election into a de facto referendum. Now she says her resignation leaves the party free to make a collective decision on this without her influence. No obvious successor is waiting in the wings. Analysts say the First Minister's departure will leave a vacuum within the SNP party, with Sturgeon's leadership having contained internal disputes on the way forward for independence in recent years.
Let's go now to South Carolina, where at her first presidential campaign event on Wednesday, former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley told an enthusiastic crowd in Charleston that it is time for the country to move past the state ideas and faded names of the past. Haley did not mention former President Donald Trump, instead focusing her criticism on the nation's current leader, Democrat Joe Biden.
In her home state of South Carolina, Nikki Haley told her first presidential campaign rally that the time has come for fresher faces to lead the country.
We're ready to move past the stale ideas and faded names of the past. And we are more than ready for a new generation to lead us into the future.
That was the closest she came to mentioning Donald Trump running for president again, and she made no mention of the promise she made in December of 2021.
I would not run if President Trump ran.
In a statement to VOA through a campaign spokesperson, Trump noted Haley's previous pledge and says he told her she should follow her heart and do what she wants to do, adding, "I wish her luck." Launching her presidential campaign with an online video, Haley portrays herself as someone for the party's future.
Republicans have lost the popular vote in 7 out of the last 8 presidential elections. That has to change.
American Enterprise Institute senior fellow John Fortier says Haley, the daughter of immigrants from India, will not be Trump's most formidable opponent.
And as UN ambassador, she was loyal to President Trump and didn't break with him as some in the Republican Party did. So, those things I think would be on the positive side for a Republican voter looking at a new candidate. On the negative side, it's not clear that she has as strong a lane or as strong an attraction to Republican voters as some others.
Haley's declaration is likely just the first among Republicans seeking to thwart Trump's return to the White House. Among those considering entering the race are 3 men who served in Trump's administration: his vice president, Mike Pence, the former Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, and former National Security Advisor, John Bolton.
The big person we're talking in this field as a potential alternative to Donald Trump is the governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis. And I think the reasons for that is that he did portray, as a large state governor in a Republican-leaning state, many of the characteristics of Donald Trump.
The Florida governor focuses on culture war issues, as does Trump, and is expected to dominate other Republican hopefuls in raising funds. That may make him attractive to party loyalists desiring a strong candidate to face the expected Democratic Party's nominee, incumbent President Joe Biden. If Haley continues to poll in the single digits, she may be seen more as a potential vice presidential candidate to the eventual party nominee. A crowd of candidates competing against the former president and each other could pave the way for Trump to repeat what he did as a political newcomer in 2016, having enough support to clear the field and capture the Republican Party's nomination. Steve Herman, VOA News, Washington.
Now in eastern DR Congo, thousands more people are becoming displaced as they flee advancing M23 rebels. Many are taking refuge in Goma, but there are fears that the rebels could soon encircle the city.
This group has just arrived at this camp on the outskirts of Goma. Tired from their journey, they finally sit to take a rest. They've joined tens of thousands of others seeking to flee the fighting in eastern DRC.
I had to flee. I saw soldiers carrying dead bodies and wounded people. We also heard explosions and loud bangs, and everyone started to run away. Some women had miscarriages because of the explosions. We were all afraid, and we had to run.
Other people shared similar stories. Women having miscarriages as the fighting drew nearer, and packing up at a moment's notice, with nowhere else to go.
I'm here because of the war. Coming here to Goma was the only option, because the M23 rebels control all the other territories. Life is hard here. We need help.
M23 rebel forces are continuing to advance in the region. Last month, they captured Kichenga, just northwest of Goma. For weeks, there have been fears that the group could encircle the city, which lies on the border with Rwanda. In November, the group accepted to withdraw by mid-January. But a month later, the agreement has stalled. Last week, East African community states offered to split up the area occupied by M23 forces into zones of influence where regional troops would be deployed once the rebels' withdrawal is complete. A proposal which ruffled the feathers of the authorities in Kinshasa.
Now in Ukraine, Ukrainians in Chasiv Yar, a town near Bakhmut in the east of the country, are enduring near constant shelling as battles between Russian and Ukrainian forces rage close by.
Locals in Chasiv Yar near Bakhmut see shelling every day. It is one of Ukraine's most dangerous areas.
My name is Roman, and I currently live in the basement. The conditions are tough. The whole city has been damaged. There's non-stop shelling, in the morning and in the evening. It's quiet for a few hours, and then it starts again. So we stay safe here.
Roman Bartko's family is one of 6, many with children, living in this basement after their homes were rendered unlivable. Despite the constant threat to his family's safety, they decided to stay.
We discussed it a lot. My wife is head of the Apartment Building Co-Owners Association. She is responsible for people's homes. Some still live there, and she does what she can to help. So for now, we're here.
And while the situation is tough for adults, Bartko says children have the hardest time.
Kids want to go outside, to run, to go for a walk. It's difficult to explain to them. It's dangerous because shelling can start any time. We have 30-40 minutes window in the morning, though, when we take them out to get some air.
Serhiy Chaus, the head of the local military administration, says bombs fall in densely populated areas.
No one can explain why they do it. There are no military objects here, just apartment buildings. And a playground, you see? Over there.
Schools and hospitals also get shelled, Chaus says. This kindergarten was shelled twice in late January. The town is living through a humanitarian crisis. Grocery stores are closed, as are pharmacies. There's only one doctor left in the town who continues to see patients.
There was a store here. It got hit, and the owner couldn't open the door. One bomb hit the church. At least 3 stores closed. We'll be leaving. There is no other way.
Lilia Kravchenko has a small stall at a local market, but after yet another shelling barrage, she decided it was time to leave. Bakhmut, a focal point of the war, is just a 20-minute drive away. The supply route for Ukrainian soldiers fighting in the city runs through Chasiv Yar, something that worries local residents who fear Russian forces will attempt to seize their town. For Yaroslava Mavchan in Chasiv Yar, Ukraine, Anna Rice, VOA News.
Now for more on Ukraine, more than 100 members of the Ukrainian military are in Poland for intense training in the German-made Leopard 2 battle tanks. Ukrainian leaders say the tanks, promised by the Western allies 3 weeks ago, will help save lives and play a key role in the fight against Russian forces.
At this army base in Światoszów, Poland, more than 100 Ukrainian troops are undergoing intense training. They were pulled from the front lines in Ukraine to learn how to operate German-made Leopard 2 tanks provided by Western allies. They are working side by side with training instructors from Canada, Norway and Poland. The Ukrainian troops, who had been fighting in the Donetsk and Luhansk region, are training 10 hours a day, including weekends.
The training is very condensed in timing. The time is the element that is the biggest issue for us. Ukrainian troops are experienced. They came here straight from the front line.
Instead of the usual 3 months, officials say the Ukrainians will be ready to take these tanks to the battlefield in a little more than a month. Ukrainian Army Major Vadim Hodak is leading the training and says his troops are poised to learn quickly.
My soldiers have combat experience. They didn't come from the street. They've been fighting on our tanks for some time, so it is a lot easier for them to learn how to use this.
Hodak says these tanks will be key on the battlefield.
At the moment, we are very short of armored vehicles, and I hope that when we get to the front line with this equipment, it will save a lot of lives of our soldiers and bring us closer to victory.
The first delivery of 14 battlefield tanks is planned as soon as next month. Leopard 2 tanks are expected to boost Kyiv forces as the war with Russia approaches the one-year mark. European partners plan to send 2 Leopard 2 tanks battalions to Ukraine. There are around 2,000 Leopard 2 vehicles spread across Europe. Officials say they expect the first delivery of 14 battlefield-ready tanks as a first step next month. Polish President Andrzej Duda visited the training site on Monday and praised Ukrainians fighting against Russia.
Ukrainians are defending us all. They are defending Europe as well against new Russian imperialism. And we know the face of Russian imperialism from our history, and our neighbors, Ukrainians, are defending us, and we thank them for that.
Duda added Poland is offering support for the Ukrainians and called on Western allies to send more equipment to Ukraine in weeks to come. Miroslava Gongadze, VOA News, Światoszów, Poland.
Now this one on a lighter note, Jafar Jackson, the nephew of the late pop singer Michael Jackson, will portray his uncle in the upcoming biographical movie Michael, a role likely to be challenging, with producers vowing the film will include all aspects of the singer's life and career.
Dead ringers? Hard to tell across the decades, but there is a certain family resemblance. 26-year-old Jafar is the son of Jermaine Jackson, Michael Jackson's older brother. He's the latest arrival in a long family saga that began with the Jackson 5 in the 1960s. Jafar recreated an iconic dance move to announce some big news. He'll be playing his uncle in an upcoming biopic.
I'm humbled and honored to bring my Uncle Michael's story to life. To all the fans all over the world, I'll see you soon.
The upcoming film's director, Antoine Fuqua, says Jafar has a natural ability to imitate his superstar uncle, and the role will be a difficult one to inhabit, as the production has promised not to gloss over the numerous accusations of pedophilia and child sexual assault against Michael Jackson. Some critics, though, prefer to look the other way.
The fact the family is involved, we can imagine that hopefully it will focus on the more extraordinary elements of this exceptional artist's career, his music, his part in the Jackson 5, and his solo albums.
Jackson was himself a movie buff. In 1988, he starred in Moonwalker, a musical anthology based on his career. The new film based on his life will likely be far less adoring.
29 minutes after 7 with that Jafar Jackson story that marks the end of our international news. We go now for an ad break, but before that, we take a look at our weather forecast.
Welcome back. Sikuvusele nawe losandza kusivulela lo mhla Kusile Breakfast Show besivedele ukuthi sizabe sikhulumisana nalabasuka eMandini boreholes. eMandini boreholes yinkampani leniketa lusido lo borehole drilling kanti komgomo wayo wekusebenza kuthuthukisa lizinga lekutfolakala kwemanti emakhasimendini abo ikakhulukazi etindzaweni lapho kude kahle khona emanti. Ngasevikeni leliphelile nje sikhulume ngenhloso yale nkampani kanye nemigomo yabo yekusebenza imisebenzi lesabayendile emimangweni. Saphenze sakhulumana ngema successes nema challenges ayo. Ngazike lamhla sitabe sibuka kakhulu nje i-pump installation. Sinaye lapha in studio the sales and marketing manager Ayandandla ngamandla kudo sichacha nje kabantu nje ngemibuto lebesolibutwa ke ngemakhasimende especially ka social media. Lamhla ke sikhuluma kabantu nje nge-pump installation ngoba sathi ukuthi before bachubeke nemsebenzi kuqala ukujulwe kuqala kuqale ku survey kuqala kahle kahle bese kuyajulwa ke bese kufakwa le pump. Ke manje sichazela kabantu Ayanda asikuvusela Ayanda, welcome back. All right. Yeah, so you nihlale neposta vele ama-updates ma-video clips kakhulu ka-Facebook like kuniketa nje sithombe bantu emakhaya ukuthi inkampani le yendani niketa ama-services la kanjani, but perhaps nje mhlambe singakangeni kule pump installation just for the benefit of the viewer lo ngakabukeli last week. I think usiniketa nje sithombe sokuthi eMandini boreholes kepha ungubani wenda ini nje athi nama-services in.
Okay. Sanibona babukele emakhaya. Kuchaza nje kabanti kuloko kokuthi sinkampani lenda ini labayibe bacelile ukuthi kube nginesiswati kakhulu ngathi singachaza ngesiswati kakhulu for the benefit of others. So kuchaza kabanti shothi sinkampani lesita ngelisito lemanti ukuthi sikhuphule abantu emanti. Asinawo ke ama customer lesingathi sibuke kiyo specifically ukuthi sibuke maybe from ages of this to this age. Asinako kubuka kuloko kangako into lesibuketa ukuthi ukuthi usisite sive ukuthi sithole manje. So noma ngangibani noma inkampani ithinga i-construction noma ama-farmers bathinga i-construction ukuthi sibadrilele emanti nanabo siyabasita noma i-community noma ngibani siyakhona ukuthi simsite kwenda ekudrilla wona emanti. So sicala ngayo i-survey njengoba bengichazile kulaba abangabonanga last week. Sicala ngayo i-survey sicale si-survey leyo ndzawo sikuto uthola ukuthi emanti akho la khaya manje ngakuphi. Then after loko kusurveya siyahamba siye bese siyokudrillela. Shothi kuba i-survey maybe the previous day bese kusengaleni langa siyabuya kwenza stock drillela. Kudrilla njengoba ngachaza ukuthi kuyashiyashiyana kuhlukana kuleti ndzawo ukuthi lendzawo lena ikanjani because leni indzawo khanzo sisithatha ilanga lonke vele sizesilale kuleyo ndzawo because emanti ayaphutha kutholakala kuleyo ndzawo. So kuba ngilete into kanjalo nje ukuthi kushona kuleyo ndzawo ukuthi ikhashane kanganani nemanti indzawo yakhona bese siyakhona ke ukuthi storage imana ukuthi isikhathi sicetha nini.
Right, just a recap futhi nje Ayanda ngiyakhumbula ukuthi last year kwasho ukuthi you guys are a new company iqale last year ngaMay. Kuba khona mhlambe lokho kungabada especially to lamanye nje ama customer my new companies. I think wavele lokuthi vele nenda nama objectives enu ama services lena provider. I think nje kuniketa nje sithombe umbukele ukuthi vele senivakashele amakhasimende lamangaki sensite abantu labangaki nje solo ngicalile last year.
Sesisithi abantu labaningi kakhulu ngoba ku-correct nje is 2021 which is not last year. 2021 so sesisithi ama customer lamaningi kakhulu ngoba sedilishile neto inkampani letinkulu bonyathi bo Well Vision lengakhohlwa kumusho nje nabo last week bo Well Vision bo Gamula so leto ma constructions lamakhulu nawo lesinabo bo Epilepsy. So sesidilile kakhulu nabo bantu and siphethene kahle lengakusho ukuthi siphethanane kahle kakhulu nawe ema customer ethu njengoba ngachaza ke ukuthi njengoba inkampani nayisaqala kuba nalawo ma hiccups endleleni ukuthi kuthi umuntu ovele nje nanjani sana vele nje aphumelele nje ucala ukukhutshwa ucala lokho kukhutshwa kuyakusita ukuthi ulungise amaphutha akho so that you grow from them ukwade ukuthi ubone ukuthi kusachubeka uyembili kufanele ngigweme nako ingako iminyaka ngeminyaka umuntu uye ubuke ukuthi ungadi correcta kuphi kanjalo ke ne company uyobuka ukuthi okay le strategy lesi sasisebenzisa last year and this is what we achieved from it. Sasilimata kuphi singashintshani as a company in order for us to go forward.
Okay, so should I end ukuthi ni my customer and have a lot of questions labantu fakela wona ku social media, and one of them yenza a pump installation. I think ngaba ngilokubuta vele lokho ukuthi ngabe le installation yendeka nini and nekuthi ibale yanganani vele.
Oh, okay. Le installation siyende 3 to 4 days after sebakugubele. So ibalulekile kakhulu ngokuba ngeke phela ugcinela ekudrilleni le borehole. Fune uthi na udrilla bese sesifaka le pump installation. Le pump installation itawusita kona ukuthi sidonse lamanti asuke kuborehole yakho ayethangeni lakho ukuthi likwethele ethangeni lakho ke. So ibalulekile kakhulu le installation because labanye nje na uhlala nje nemgodi solungakafaki le pump installation fana nokuthi phela imando sengawa enjoy. Kona fine unawo la khaya but usengawa nathi because asengadonswa ukuthi afake ethangeni lakho.
Bese kwenteka nje kuma essences line khanza khona ukuthi njengoba usho ukuthi ngicala nisave icala ukuthi lenzawo enamanti lapho khona kunithatha isikhathi ukuthola indzawo lenamanti kahle vele kube likhuni lokuthola lenzawo lenamanti bese nenda kanjani mangabe kwenteka igaba kuleti kanjalo.
Kuyenteka ukuthi sikhanza ukuthi kulikhuni ukuthola imandi kuleyo ndzawo, and what we do lapho ukhanza ukuthi ngilesikhathi sisina sidrilla lo mgodi ube khashane kakhulu because nasi surveyor automatically kudasitshela ukuthi lamanda la, but ngeke ukusitshele ukuthi ndawathola nyalo after 50 meters, uyabona kudasitshela ukuthi lenzawo le emanda khona, but nase udrilla bese ubona lapho ukuthi uyabona la lenzawo leni ligagathule kude emanda latholakala wona kufuneka sichubeke sidrille ube base uyafika 100 meters emanda esola kaphuma sokuphuma lithuli lodwa nje uchubeka udrille futhi till uzowathola.
So that is more expensive.
That is more expensive for our client. Siye simchazisele ke ngakuloko ukuthi vele thina ngoba thina sikucoverishela to 50 meters, but nase sichubeka sesijila deeper sikucharge ekhikhini lakho per meter, we charge per meter. Shothi nje nasichubeka siyaphasi wena kuyakucharge, nasichubeka siyaphasi kuyakucharge.
So what's the deepest nje lena lesenemgubhile solona qala?
It is 150 mostly, 150 180 meters, so kuyashiyana ngasho kanjalo labanye 120 but nje kube ngilo 150 meters. Yes.
All right. So ngifuna sibuyele nje kule pump installation because I suppose ukuthi vele babe nemibuto leminingi mayelana ne weather, especially mangabe liyana kakhulu niyakhona nivele kuchubeka nemsebenzi wenu ku install.
Kucishe kufana nangala ka drilling ukuthi nalina vele sigongonyeke. We can't operate very well. Same applies to us install like a pump. When it's raining, we can't install a pump for you because lapho kusebenza gas. So umuntu angathuka sithoka ngeza site nathi uzama ukuthi aku installele ipump ngoba kufuneka kushiselwe kwendwelo kanaloko, and that's electricity is required ukuthi sende lokho. So siye sikhuthade sikunqonodo lokho ukuthi nalama clients ethu sezwathise ukuthi nangabe ufuna sikinstallele ipump kufuneka ukuthi libalele nje kahle noma lingasibekela ke it's okay. Lokho ukuthi alini vele nalina cha iweather iyasihlukubeda ke lapho.
So kona lokho install kuthatha nje isikhathi esinganani?
Lokho install kuthatha lelilanga nje. Yes, lelilanga nje kuphela. Ukuthi sikinstallele.
Okay, what happens after the installation?
After the installation, okay, tinto lesiya istibuka ukuthi nasikinstallela kufuneka sibuke distance from leli thange lakho to le borehole yakho la sifaka khona le installation pump, ngoba sifuna ukuthi le amount of water pressure kube ipressure le tawukhona ukuthi ifike emanda iwafikise kahle ethangeni, angafike angazuthi aphuma kancane ngazuthi ilena. So that is why we have to look at the distance, na le distance leyo siyibuke nanangabe ke le ikhashi lelikhaya gas ukhashane from lena ngisho noma there's no electricity, naloko ke kulicharge le customer siyicharge lapho the distance from the electricity source ke kumcharge ke lapho le customer ukuthi how many meters kusuka lapha side lapha, ngoba njengoba ngisho sesisebenza ngagas we have to install the pump sijidrillele kahle sikhona ukuthi manje siwa connect on your tank.
So speaking of charges nje I think uvedile ukuthi niya driller nephindze futhi mhlambe nibafakele nale pump nalama pumps, so niba charger separately kuhlukile loku le drilling nale
the pump installation is different.
Okay.
It's different. That is why
so niyabendela konke nina kudinga ukuthi umuntu ati ade drillele le borehole kuqala?
No, umuntu angathi drilela ibhohole because we also give ama-services ukuthi sik-installele ipump kuphela. So we don't mind a person ukuthi udrillile elsewhere. So uthi kimi yathi ukuthi I need to install a pump. How much can you guys charge me? We go and survey that place. Lesiye sikubuke ke nakulelo hlangothi ukuthi siyesicela nangabe lo muntu edanje ukuthi uyadidela. Siyesicela ukuthi sicela ukuthi asiphe kusemantanganani. Information ekusemantanganani nekuthi ibhohole yakhe umgosi ushona kanganani, so that we are able to know ukuthi simniketa the small pump lekufuneka siyifake noma is the bigger pump.
So ikhona yini discounted package nje nangabe nje ngifuna ukuthi konke ngendele konke from the drilling process to the final stage?
Yes, there is a discounted package. Yes, there is a discounted package, of course. And logo kungene kule special set lesitende. Ukuthi okay, njenga kule nyanga nje ukuthi you having this Valentine special. Litawuphela nakuphela lo February. So we discount everything ngokhanze ukuthi umuntu kule package yakhe simfakela le pump, simfakela ukuthi siyamjilela, simfakela ukuthi kubhadala i-survey fee, and we exclude VAT. Then on top of that simpay hamper, 500 rand from OK.
Yeah. So speaking of my fees, vele sola phone kuzivetela vele ukuthi la pump installation. Ngithawa balini. I think sovetile kancane lokuthi bese niya charge extra uma ngabe senindile 50 meters.
Singasho nje ukuthi it's from 16,000. Yes.
Okay. So the whole package nje.
Yeah, pumping only, just the pumping only.
Okay. So yini nje mhlambe ma requirements leniya in bese niyawacela kuma clients eni before nje kusanwe ma contracts or any agreements ngaphambi kokuthi ucala umsebenzi?
Requirements on which part, on the drilling or the pump installation?
Konke nje ngalokho driller, yes.
Oh, okay. Kuloku driller. We have to go and survey, obviously, and so kuloko go driller kwethu siyesicela ukuthi umuntu abhadale surveying fee. Yes, we start with the surveying fee, then before we go and drill for that person, suke sicelile ukuthi akabhadale the drilling fee as well. Sto khona ukuthi drill. The one lesi yesimkhothele yona ukuthi aqhubeka ayibhadale is normally the one le kuba khanza ukuthi nasasile site we've exceeded the 50 meters, now it's time for him to pay up the outstanding balance ukuthi sasimjulele saqhubeka kulo 50 meters, so you normally calculate that balance for him sicela ukuthi nayo asibhadalele. But nanayo siyesim highlightele prior nakade ucala nje ubuda encourage ngale drilling ukuthi siyesende njani, so we normally update that person prior ukuthi okay, we'll drill for you till 50 meters, but nasekuchubeka beyond the 50 meters kudodzinga ukuthi wena bese soyabhadala when we charge per meter. So a client siya kiyo nje soyidrillela suke say away about all those things.
So ngifuna ukubuta la ende ukuthi imimango ngisakhumbula kahle ukuthi wathi last week niyayisida yini. I think losovedile nje ukuthi vele loku install abo 16,000 ngibekise nje umango yahlangana ngileyo household yakhokha imali ufuna ukufaka ibhohole. Nibasida kanjani? Kukhona ama discounted fees ngoba bona sibuka lokho ukuthi vele kude kahle le mali bahlangene nje zomphakathi bafuna kuba nemali niyabuka indlela ba-charge ngayo niyabasida yini vele?
Yes, siyabasida. Kuye kube repricing ke noko, although we recommend ukuthi nangabe njani they should pay in installment form, that we sign a contract bakhona ukuthi babhadale installment form, and nakhona ngiyangibachazisela lokho ukuthi okay, paying in installment form sidawucela lokho ukuthi now badala maybe you pay like 50% upfront kule installment form, then thina sidakhona ukuthi sibe sesesiyaza makuthi sinijilele.
Okay, so nakhona lapha the requirements ayafanana.
The requirements ayafanana, sengiloko ukuthi siyes understand lokho they can pay in installment form bona gokuthi ngoba bayi community. Others bayayeke bathi okay, let us sit as a community discuss. Clients I've spoken to nje this week recently kukhona bekuyi community athi lobuti okay, they community bafuna lokho ukuthi ba install emanti. Yes. So ngaba neko ukuthi okay, they can pay in installment form. We don't mind them paying in installment form, but ke umsebenzi sesiqono ukuthi sewucale vele sekusesibona ukuthi okay, so uyicatsile lena amount, then we come and drill for you. And lapho ke singachubeka sekujulele kuloko lokunye sinibhalele le outstanding amount beyond lo 50 meters. That's the least we can do.
So le installments, does it also apply to individuals, nema companies noma bona vele they are
forced it does apply to them as well. If a client they won't manage to pay up the full fee, it does apply, because recently I've spoken to another client at Mbaga, lobeka for installation, pump installation. The whole amount, the 16,000 SEs. So I was like, okay, you can pay the 50% upfront. Yes.
All right. So any challenges in Jelengena Pigana now? As a company,
of course, delay in the process of us meeting our target as a company, because with a lot of clients to drill for. Sorry, so but nevertheless we were able to update our clients. So there'll be a shift on the dates because of the weather. This is vimbili. Because another thing itruck keep us 18. So this is forced by customer satisfaction. But and now she's happy with her home.
Okay. So speaking of your clientele, say from the time that you commenced 2 years ago. Your growth as a company.
Yes, our growth, and recently we've observed we almost like on 2K followers on social media, mostly on Facebook. So that was a good sign. The short period, January, we've accumulated that kind of number in my followers. Very impressive, and nevertheless kunalawa hiccups but imvula itruck ihleba nema-complications nayo and all that, but esikhonile lokho ukuthi ama-clients asolo ayafloka in, ayasupport.
Okay. Yes. So do you normally offer pump promotions noma ke drilling promotions during the festive promotions?
Yes, of course we do that. As I had highlighted earlier, recently in the month of February, it was a month of love, we were giving away the promotion. We will exclude VAT, and we'll put in the pump installation figure la see discount nayo. So I package it to today tabanale pump even a drilling fee, then the survey fee will exclude VAT. So umuntu utawuthola bese always simgetela ihamba yakhe 500 rand. So and my clients, they were very happy about that, and they are flocking in jebasama ukuthi nabo baqoshele especially.
Yes. Okay, so after Valentine's good holiday, Easter holidays, can we expect
we are yet to see as a company and sit down and discuss upon that because kubalulekile ukuthi nawe ama customer ahlajabula a benefit from a company.
All right. So can we anticipate a Q&A session on your social media pages? Just nibe live babude logo la babuda kukhona mhlambe lenihlelile nje kwalelo hlangothi.
Yes, it is something that we started actually this week, whereby we posted, like we didn't post ad in a Q&A session. A person can freely ask about the drilling industry. So we had done that attempt, and I have been getting calls mostly about the installation. Do you guys provide them tanks? Water tanks. Let's say I don't have a water tank. Do you provide them a stand? And all that is catered.
Okay. Yes. So how do they contact you and follow office
they can go through our Facebook page, or which is Eswatini Boreholes, or visit our offices at Estelle House Manzini, office number 8 on the first floor, or they can contact us on our numbers, which is 79635367. The other one is 78133719.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, thanks so much. I understand. When next week again,
So
sizobe sikhuluma dona nje tindzaba tekujula, tindzaba tek-install ama-pumps, netindzaba nje tema-boreholes. Bese sikhulumisana naye Ayandandla ngamandla long-sales and marketing manager eMandini Boreholes. Tabe sinabo nje njalo ngabo lesine kukhuluma ngabantu nje ngato tindzaba tekujula ngama-services lawa la providwa ngiyo le nkampani lena eyasungulwa eminyakeni lemibili leyengcile. Ungachumana nabo ka-Facebook batibita ngekuthi Emandini, yes, all right. Thank you so much. As Battle to Margaret Sister, we are starting to
Pay your TV license quickly and easily with MTN Momo. Simply dial *007 *3 hash and select option 8 for TV license. Enter your national ID number as your reference and the amount you wish to pay. Then enter your PIN to confirm your payment. Once your payment has been made, you'll receive a confirmation SMS of your payment. If you're a first-time payer, you get another SMS for your TV license. So legalize your entertainment from the comfort of your home. Pay your TV license the easy and convenient way with MTN Momo.
Everywhere you go, MTN.
All right, welcome back. It's 4 minutes before 8 o'clock. Sisanza kukhulumisana na sales and marketing manager wenkampani eMandini Boreholes. Ngazike kuva kabantu ngachumana nabo ekhasini labo letekuchumana ka Facebook eMandini. Yonke imininingwane yabo iyatholakala khona lapho. Bazi nje singakavalele sisita ufuna nje ukuchubeka nje ukukhuthaza abantu namagqugqutela abantu kuba khumbuta ngevoter education etaba ichubeka itinkhundleni etahlukahlukene this weekend yamhla ka 18 na 19 kulembala somvo lapho khona libandla ledelicate nemingcele EPC itaba ifundzisa sive semaswati kulandzela ukuthi lo nyaka ngomnyaka welukhet for national elections balekileke ukuthi leli bandla libafundzisa abantu ngayo imigomo yelukhet ukuthi inethingekile kuleyo lot of vote tindzaba tekubhalisa makhadi ekubhalisa ukuthi yonke lemininingwane leyo sive kumele siyadi nemithetho nje leyengamele iyona likhetho otabe ufundzisa ngako ke ka IPC imininingwane yatholakala ukuthi batabe bakutiphi inkhundla batabe bakiphi imiphakathi kule weekend esiyakiyo.
Yeah, interesting. Indzaba ye-civic and voter elections lungelele indzaba le serious kakhulu ngoba simvile ne-parliament through yena uNkulunkulu welive Cleopas Dlamini asho ukuthi government will support wona ema-elections nge-significant budget. Uphinde-ke wagcizelela wacela nemaswati ukuthi akhumbule phela ukuthi exercising your voting rights is enshrined in the country's constitution, and therefore emaswati are implored to go vote so that they contribute to your national building. September ukuthi emaswati atawuvele ende njalo aphume ngenombolo ngebuningi bawo aye kuyavota njengoba likhetho selitawuqala masinyane.
Yes, and also konkumbuta ngema local government elections nawo yaqhubeka this year simbonile nje DPM nayo yobhalisa sive solo sacela ukuthi naso sibhalise elikhethweni lemadolobha. It's 2 minutes before 8. Thanks so much for joining us today. We'll see you tomorrow. Have a lovely day.